I'd like to take a moment to share with you a solid conversation with a new client. It's my hope that what I shared with her is a help to you the way it was to her. She is 33 years old. She is single, no children. She came to me and said, Doc, I'm just being point blank, straightforward from the beginning. I want you to help me get my boyfriend back. I said, what's going on? She said, well, he's really my ex-boyfriend. I dumped him after dating him for about 3 years, and I started seeing someone else. And I will admit I started seeing that person within weeks of dumping my ex-boyfriend. I said, why did you do that? She said, well, in hindsight, I believe I did it to avoid the pain. I recognized that at that time in my life, I was absolutely an avoidant. I wasn't very comfortable in processing pain, processing things like fear. These are things that I've learned since watching your Thursday Lives, and it was the top of the list to talk with you once I got on your calendar. She said to me that the relationship didn't work out that she went into. She started seeing a gentleman, and she said that lasted about 1.5 years. And then after she did that, she came to slowly realize, actually, while she was with this new guy, that her ex was the one for her. I said, you came into this realization while you were engaged with the new guy or dating the new guy? She said, yeah, I was only dating him. But while I was dating this new guy, she said maybe 6 or 7 months into the situation, I realized he wasn't the one for her and that her ex was really the guy. I said, well, how did your ex respond to all of this? I'm assuming you guys were still communicating. She said, I would communicate with him off and on, after maybe, 4, 5, 6 months into the new situation, I started, just occasionally texting my ex to check on him, things like that. And she said, I realized I was doing that to just really kind of keep a temperature check on him. But I can honestly admit that it wasn't sincere checking out. I just did it because I wanted to just know he was nearby. I just knew that what I was in wasn't going to work. I really wasn't at a place where I really wanted to fully process my thoughts and my feelings. And that's why I attempted to move on. I said, so then how did he respond again? And she said that his response was that he was very distraught, that he had actually learned from a friend who saw her and this new guy out, that she had moved on. And not only was he distraught, she said, Doc, when I learned that he was distraught, I really didn't care. Like in the beginning, when I first moved on, I didn't care that he was mad or anything like that. To me, moving on felt like the best decision. She said, I broke up with him, Doc, because I felt like we were growing apart at that time. I said, what made you give you that impression? She said, well, I had just finished graduate school and he had just started a new career and job. And so his hours increased by about 20 hours a week. And so he was working anywhere from 50 to 60 hours a week. And she had just finished graduate school and was getting ready to start pursuing new careers. And she just felt like they were going in opposite directions. I said, well, it sounds like you were going in the same direction. You were moving in the same way in terms of progressing forward, you with education, him with his career, and you with education and career. So how could you just see that different? She said, well, Doc, we still spent time together while, those things were going on, grad school and him working on his career. They still took time together, but they just felt like that they were growing apart. And because she felt like they were growing apart because they didn't spend as much time, she felt like it just wasn't going to work and that she wanted something different and she needed more and she wanted more attention. And she said, Doc, I know it's a very young thought to have. I said, well, I didn't say that, but we can go with that. It is a very young thought because as you mature and you heal, you recognize, ma'am, as a woman, that if your desire is to have a healed masculine man, he probably ain't going to have a lot of free time on his hands. And if he does, he's going to do what he can to dedicate some of that time to you. She said, Doc, I couldn't agree more. I absolutely recognize that after the fact, but I didn't see it in the moment. So I started dating this guy that I work with, and he was giving me all the attention that I wanted. He was always available. He could always show up when I wanted to hang out. He was just always there. I said, well, man, Pookie ain't got nothing but free time. She said, who? I said, Pookie. You don't know who Pookie is? She said, yeah, Pookie is a guy that's just a busted guy, but Doc, he had a good job. I said, let's redefine what Pookie is. Pookie is a dysfunctional man. You know what the word dysfunctional means? She said, you said it means broken. I said, it does mean broken. So Pookie is a broken man. And the reality is, if you started dating Pookie within weeks after breaking up with your boyfriend that you were with for about 3 years, and you know my rule of thumb, that for every year you've been with someone, you need 2 to 4 years to process it. I said, ma'am, you're an avoidant. You need all 4 of those months per year to process this breakup, but you didn't. And you ran right into the arms of Pookie, who gladly accepted you. I said, so of course, Pookie ain't got none but free time. He'll make time for dysfunction. He'll make time to feed his dysfunction. And I said, now you're at this place where you want your ex-boyfriend back. So how do you think that's going to look to him? What is he saying about this? What's his impression about this? She said, it's funny you asked that. And she started to tear up and cry a little bit on the call. At this point in the conversation, she said she talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and he said to her that he really does love her. He still loves her, but he cannot move by or move past what she did and how she handled that breakup. And he said to her, that since they broke up, he's been on his healing journey. He's been working on himself, and it's made him see her behavior and actions in a totally different way, from a healthy perspective and an absolutely completely dysfunctional perspective. So he does love her, but he's been working on himself, and he just doesn't know if he can move beyond it. He doesn't know if he can move beyond the fact that she attempted to use somebody else to feel better about their relationship. And then she started to cry. She went from tearing up to crying, and I gave her a second. And as she was able to talk a little better, I said to her, ma'am, did he forgive you? She said, he said that he did, but I don't believe him. I said, why don't you believe him? She said, because he won't take me back. I said, ma'am, there's a clear difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. And I said, ma'am, at 33, you ought to know that just because a person forgives you doesn't mean they have to reconcile with you. And it doesn't mean that there has to be beef or drama because they don't reconcile with you. It just simply means that they made a choice post forgiveness not to return to you or not to return to a place that they have once been. But it doesn't mean that that place or that person is bad or that place or person can't heal and move on. It just simply means that sometimes the breach is so great that people choose not to go backwards again. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean that any of the parties are perfect or any of the parties are bad. I said, ma'am, there's a true crime show that I watch occasionally when I have time that I'll watch. And I saw one recently where there was a young man who was caught in a very well-known store shoplifting. And this young man was caught shoplifting. And apparently, because they didn't show this on the show, he was caught shoplifting. I think he had just grabbed 2 pieces of candy or something, like wrapped candy. The value was less than $5, but they caught him on camera, went to him while he was in the store, had found it in his pants, walked him to the office and told him he was not welcome in that store. Said that the teen was very honest about the candy and apologetic. He even started to cry when he was caught. And the store manager gave him grace. Store manager says, okay, I'm not going to call the police. I appreciate you, owning it. You can't do this again, and you're not welcome back in this store anymore. So he said that he let the young man go. Well, the reason why this true crime show comes into play is because the young man came back. And he came back about 4 or 5 months later. And when he came back, he was caught shoplifting again. But this time, the same manager, ironically, happened to be there, and this manager called the authorities. The authorities came and and arrested him, and it was obviously a misdemeanor. I think this time it was like a shirt or something that he had stolen, so it wasn't anything great or grand, but he was also told that he not only could not come back to that store, but he could not come back to any other stores that were representative of the store that he's in. I said, ma'am, do you see the difference in this story between forgiveness and reconciliation? She said, I do. I said, ma'am, the store owner, the manager rather, tried to give this young man a chance. Tried to give him a chance, and he really didn't have to do that. But that young man that stole that candy the first time had a price to pay. And he was not welcome back in that store. But he came back anyway. And not only did he come back, but he turned around and he did it again. And this time, not only was he not welcome in that store, he's not welcome in any of the stores related to that store. And that is because you can forgive a person, but it does not mean you have to welcome them back. I said, ma'am, when avoidants numb the pain, they have to pay the price. And this is what we're getting here. You as an avoidant numb the pain. And when avoidants numb the pain, they have to pay the price. And this is the price that you're paying. Will he come back? I don't know. She said, then Doc, what should I be doing in the meantime? I said, you should be working on becoming the best version of you. You should be working on healing this avoidant attachment style. You should be consolidating, or rather reconciling, your fears and your anxiousness around those fears and why you can't address those fears so that you can become the best version of yourself, and then open yourself up, and hopefully things will work out. You seem like a very nice woman. He sounds like a very decent man. Your ex, I hope it works out. But let this be a lesson that there's no Pookie in the world that can help you heal the pain when you go through a breakup. And when you attempt to numb that pain, you have to pay the price for that pain. And she's doing well. We've had 3 calls since then. We're working on her values. I've asked her to completely leave this gentleman alone and really focus on herself. And if she does desire to be back with him, to just remain hopeful that maybe their paths will cross again as he continues to do his own work as well. I hope this story made sense. If it did, type church in the comments with 3 R's. And then remember, you've got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Zeb. Listen, I've been dying to make this announcement for a very long time now, and I'm pleased to say that Inspire Nation has officially launched. Yes, we finally got a Facebook and YouTube community group where we're going to have exclusive content, exclusive shorts, exclusive discussion prompts, where we're going to engage with other people literally around the world who are on the same healing journey that we're on. I need you to go find these pages right now on Facebook and YouTube. Inspire Nation, follow the page, join the group, introduce yourself, and be prepared to link up with literally thousands of people around the world who are on the same healing journey, who are looking for the same resources, and who want to also be surrounded with other like-minded individuals who are growing in the same direction as you are. I'm so excited about this because it's the beginning of some great things I can't talk about right now. Listen, you got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you.